Hello, everybody. My name's Alex. I normally do like these very like kind of like extravagant, really like high effort talks where I live code and I do a bunch of stuff. And then when I was talking to, actually first, just big round of applause for Aaron because he's been putting this on forever. And so I think this is my fourth time talking here. So he's been a very gracious host. So yeah, I typically put a lot of effort into these talks. And when we were talking about what I should talk about this time, I have been going through a very kind of, look, at the end of the day, when you work as an engineer, it's not all coding. Life happens. There's things you got to worry about when it's like politics at work, tech debt, all sorts of stuff. Super boring, but that's what we decided on. So as a tradition, I always, first of all, how many people are totally new to this talk? Like, to this event? Okay, handful of people. Do we have like any brand new coders, like developed just starting school? Awesome. All right. Okay. So let's do some JavaScript. JavaScript's awesome because you can do it right in the browser. I don't know why I do this. It's just a tradition. It's a party trick. You can always let's make some sound with our browser, right? So let's we're gonna create a context. Oh yeah, const let var. Don't worry about that part. Context. Oh, don't do that. Context equals. Oh, also the browsers are so smart these days. They just tell me what to do now. Okay, so I'm going to create a new audio context. I'm going to create an oscillator, which is taking the context object and creating an oscillator object out of it. And then now what I want to do, so an oscillator is a thing that like vibrates and makes sound. So I want to change the frequency based on something. Let's use the mouse movement, window.on mouse move equals E for event. And we'll change the oscillator.frequency. Nope, frequency dot value equals client X. That looks appropriate. And then we need to connect that oscillator to our speakers. So we'll say oscillator.connect and to the context.destination. Okay. We're all set up here, I think. Let's hope this works. All we need to do now is call oscillator.start to make it vibrate. And if I move my mouse around, move. Oh, I have a bunch of errors. What's it saying? Undefined. What did I do wrong? On mouse move, oscillator.frequency. Oh, you guys are so good. Okay. Right on. Okay. Anyways, I do this demo a lot at the beginning of the talks because JavaScript's a lot of fun. So if you guys don't code a lot of JavaScript, you can do it right in the browser. Super great. And now on to the horrifically boring talk of tech debt. Let's go. Okay, tech debt. Like I said, I normally just jump right in and talk about I live code stuff, talk about technology. It's super fun. It's JS Ruby. This is the perfect time to talk about these kinds of fun tech things. Every now and then, got to talk about work and the real life of engineering. And so I hope this will be something that you can take to your workplaces when you go to work, if you're working already, if you're dealing with the never-ending battle between people who say like, build features, make a product, I need it today, I need it last week. And we're like, no, everything's broken, we have no tests, etc. Right? So this is the kind of struggle between engineers who want to build, we want to engineer, we want to do something that's actually engineering, and we have to fight people who just want a product right away. And I always find it funny because software engineer might be one of the most like middle of the road BS engineering titles, but it's true. It is true engineering. But nobody would ever say like, I need this bridge or this building and I need it now. It doesn't matter if it stands or if it works or something, right? And so it's just like, yeah. So there's something about software where you got to stand up for yourself a bit more. And if you can bring that forward to your team, I think it's a really important value. Okay, so tech debt and you. I, I'm going to spend a bunch of time talking about my career. I think it's important for this particular talk. So let's go through it. Okay, so I started, I'm just turning 40, almost 39, in that range. I'm a musician, core, true to my life, I'm a musician. That's how I see myself. I play piano, I play drums, I play guitar, I'm a musician. However, it's not a very good money-making strategy. So when I was in my early 20s, I started to play around with web development and got into things and got into a computer science program at Ryerson in Toronto. And that totally, my whole trajectory of my life changed. So I got a junior role at this company called Jolera. Does anyone ever know the software called SharePoint? Oh, too many of you know that. Yeah. It's awful. It's awful. So the company Jolera, my very first job, we made custom SharePoint portals. So it's like for governments and other people that they wanted like a fancy SharePoint. And for people that are potentially unaware, that's very heavy into the .NET stack, and we're talking about back in 2012, 2013. So it was ASP.NET. Razor was like around the corner. But one thing that everybody could agree on was that everybody hated JavaScript. Everybody hated JavaScript. This was pre ES6. This was huh? IE6. Oh, Internet Explorer. Oh my gosh. Everybody loved jQuery. So yeah. So in fact, at that time, jQuery and JavaScript were synonymous topics. I'm kind of dating myself here, but at the end of the day, there was I learned a really important lesson back at this time, which was that it didn't matter really whether it was ASP.NET or JavaScript or something. Like this was the beginning of my understanding that there's higher level topics that are much more important. What's the quality of the user experience? What is the query time, right? Like as engineers in computer science land, we like to get into the weeds about, big O notation, like how long are these queries going to take? Or on the front end side, right? Like how accessible it is and stuff like that. You got to make compromises all over the place, all the time in a real work setting. And so my first job at Jolera, when everybody hated JavaScript, I was like, I like JavaScript. I actually really liked it a lot. Flash was still a thing back then, and Flash used ActionScript, and I liked that. So I was like, I'm going to be the JavaScript guy. And around that time, the first edition, I don't call it, the first version of Angular, the first like SPA, the single page application revolution, which now we all use all the time if we use React or Angular or whatever it is, Vue, right? Like this is so commonplace now, but back then, it wasn't that big. So I started to learn early in my career that, and we, at the end of this, we can really talk about where AI fits into this now, because that's like a big change too. But there's tools that we can use to make your user experience better, the clients better. We're making more money. At the end of the day, we're trying to make money as engineers. I hate to say that. If you're working in open source, good for you. And so it was just really good timing. I took their old post-back, slow, crummy SharePoint portals and turned them into like beautiful single-page applications with Angular and JavaScript, and it really worked out for me, and that accelerated my career. So I moved on to my next job was as a lead developer at the Ontario Institute for Cancer Research. Now, when I started there, because I had a lot of Angular experience, that's why I got hired. That's why I was there to lead their Angular stuff. But what was right around the corner? React. So I'm thinking React seems like really cool. It's a good bet. What if I just rebuild this entire software suite in React? And like my bosses, managers. So at the Ontario Institute for Cancer Research, not a for-profit business, not non-profit. We got grant money, so they're like, no, you can't do that. Absolutely not. Uh, so I spent my entire summer, like after hours, rebuilding everything in React, and I made sure that the CSS and everything was perfect. So like one day I was like, guys, use the app. And they're like, yeah, we use it all the time. And they're like, look at the code. And it was all React. And they're like, fine, all right, we're moving up to React. And that ended up being a good bet, right? Who uses React here? Lots of you, right? So this was back in 2015. In 2014, React didn't even have the JSX. It didn't even have the HTML tags, right? You have to say like React.create element function calls. There's a big function call stack. But this ended up being a bit of a trend for my personal career, where I would like come in, I'm like, yo, there's like this brand new thing. Let's do it with the new cool thing, right? And I made some bets here. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of something that like totally tanked, that if I chose it, it would have been a bad bet. I'm not sure. If anyone thinks of something, let me know. In any case, what? You have a good, no, what's something that tanked? CoffeeScript was amazing. I loved it. So all the good things in CoffeeScript and Jade and Stylus all moved into the new JavaScript stuff. In any case, that was great. I didn't make a lot of money there because it was a non-profit, so I moved up. Windscribe is a VPN digital securities. I learned how the internet worked for the first time after many years of actually being in the world of web development. This is a bad slide, I think. Oh, it is a terrible slide. Let's try a different one. What was this? Ruby.js? Maybe I didn't save it. It doesn't matter. All right, we're gonna run with this because I made a mistake. All right, so between staff engineer at Apollo, has anyone used GraphQL? Yeah, so I got really into GraphQL really early. I got really lucky. So like a lot of the people that I worked with early in my career, they got into like Flow. That was before TypeScript was a thing, and GraphQL was like super early. React was super early, and so I somehow ended up making a lot of good bets. But hopefully at the end of this story of my career, you'll see that it wasn't as lucky as you might think, right? If you're reading newsletters, if you're talking to colleagues, if you're up and up, right, you can make some good bets. And again, with the AI thing, like landscape is changing quite drastically, right? So like this is an incredible time to get into the software engineering career. Cool, I was an educator. I taught at Lighthouse Labs. It's a whole bunch of stuff here. None of this stuff's important. I did startups. All right, let's go on. But the overall trend was with my career, and something that I ended up being in consultancy and got a lot of jobs, being that guy that you called when they were like, hey, we have a product with a terrible engineering stack. Can you come in and help us? So have you guys seen Kitchen Nightmares? Or know like roughly about Gordon Ramsay's, like he has a show where it's a big performative thing. Like we have a failing restaurant, come in here, tell people how to cook properly, all drama. And all of that stuff has been my experience in my career, where I would come into a company and their tech stack would be bad, so I'd upgrade it, I'd work with people, there'd be lots of drama, people would push back, they're saying like, you can't take over the ship, we have engineers, there would already be engineers, there's not like we built this stack in a particular way, and there's a lot of back and forth, and over time, it's like, okay, we have a product we have to build, or there's a product, there's something. There's something at the end of the day that customers are going to use. There's data that we have to access. There's tons of stuff that is just in the real world, right? Like in the business world, there's lots of egos and stuff like that. You got to deal with that kind of thing. And certainly in my experience, and now, even now, right, I don't always have the ability to just tell everybody, we're doing it my way. This is my television show. Right? We're going to do it like this, right? A lot of times I have to convince people how to do things and why we're going to do things. And this idea of tech debt starts to sort of enter the picture, right? Because in my experience, what happens a lot, let's skip through these slides. Oh, this was supposed to say your company. Okay, here we go. Right, this is what happens in a lot of engineering situations. Almost every single one. I would say without fail, there's a push and pull between product people saying like, we got to get features out, we have to fix bugs, right? A lot of stuff that I would even consider to be sort of tech. Has anyone done any open source work? A little bit, right? When you're working in open source, you're responding to pull requests, you are managing your repository, you are writing contributing documentation, you are writing labels. There's so much. Let's talk about a restaurant. Now that we're talking about kitchen nightmares. Do you really need to every day make a ticket to say like clean the garbage out, right? There's some tasks that are just expected, that are done every day. You clean as you go, but there could be a janitor that comes in and cleans things. And so if there's one takeaway I love everyone, is that the janitor in the tech world is so important. It's so amazingly important. And I'm not going to use the word DevOps because that's kind of like a specialized term, but there's just developer operations in a more broad sense. There is all of the maintenance, all of the reviews, good Git etiquette, upgrading packages. Who works with Node? Who's had to upgrade React or React Router, or or Ruby gems or something like that? It's one of the most awful things that you can do as an engineer, but it's so necessary. Otherwise, you end up with an old building, things are falling apart, and all sorts of stuff, right? So it's like those types of jobs are incredibly important. So this is what tends to happen with a lot of companies is they don't allow for that type of janitorial work in their main sprints. Oh, I guess last question. Has anyone done agile with sprints and stuff, right? Yeah, exactly, right? So you get a sprint, right? And we put all the tickets in the sprint, and you have a project manager and a stakeholder and a CO and whatever, and they're like, okay, you got to make a button, you got to make a form, you got to fix this bug, you do this stuff. And some poor developer's like, yeah, but our queries take 10 seconds to load. And they're like, don't worry about that. So they're like, we'll do that. We'll get all the stuff and we'll put these things at the end. So just whenever you have time, focus on all the feature work. And when you have these little spaces, right, clean up, do that kind of thing. Right? But you would never tell that to somebody working in a restaurant, right? It's just like, these are all jobs that have to happen concurrently. So this is what happens. Tech debt grows over time. The term tech debt, you've all heard that? How many of you have you heard the term tech credit? Right? Right. So what we all as engineers, or whomever are engineers, or even if you're not an engineer, you're a project manager, you're an entrepreneur or something, you want to create a culture of building tech credit. You want to be able to get your product further so that when the time comes, you've got some headroom for tech to go bad, for things to go wrong, right? You want tech credit, right? When you're dealing with tech debt, it's too late already, right? But it's all too common for engineering companies, startups, software companies to address tech debt later. And so it's literally the opposite. This whole thing should be inverted, right? It should be like, let's build tech credit and then build the software so that we have some wiggle room to move forward. And this is kind of, at least in a lot of the situations that I've seen, you have like one gigantic talent pool and then all of the things. And at the beginning of every sprint, right, we divvy out tasks, you've got stories and this kind of thing. It's like, all right, we're going to take our big group of developers, we're going to divvy everything out. This is not good. This is a failing strategy. I guarantee you this is a failing strategy. Right? Every single one of you has an expertise in CSS, in DevOps, in this, in that. There's like in security, in accessibility. There are so many places to specialize in engineering. And I taught boot camp for many years. And around this time, I was just like, meet people, be friendly, learn stuff, do that. And I'd always say, find one thing that you really like and be really good at that. But now is especially the time to do that. Because with the advent of AI, so even in my own world, like I specialize in a bunch of things, but because I've been around the block for 15 years, I know enough about most topics that I can ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to get that rest of the way there. Right? So all of us can be generalists. Being a specialist is not something like that's always going to be something. There's always the tip of the spear. You can always be the best CSS person or the best whatever, cryptography, or, there's tons of stuff to do, whether it's computer science or DevOps. It's a big field, right? So there's always going to be the new frontier of stuff, and now is the best time ever to really consider what is the thing that really draws you? What do you think that you want to specialize in? And that brings me to my next idea here. Oh, enabling teams. I'm skipping all of this. That's just how it is. So what is the solution for this stuff? So I have two layers here, right? You have to make a product. You still have to sell things. You need users. You need purchases, right? You still got to have something. So you have to have that. This top layer is not something you can ever replace. And just like when you shovel snow, this is Edmonton, when you shovel snow, as you shovel, you have a wake of stuff you have to shovel later, right? Maybe you have a snowblower, I don't know. But like, there's no clean way to go through a new territory, right? And so if you have layers of teams, in the same way that we have a stack of software, you have a stack of teams. You have a team that's forward-facing, they're fixing bugs, they're building new features, and you have a team right behind them to clean up after them. They're upgrading packages, they're writing regression tests, they're updating their CI, and then it's up to your imagination to decide, right? Like, try to if you can try to graph this, right? Like that first group, as they go through and just build stuff and build stuff and build stuff, they're not upgrading a Ruby gem. They don't have time for that, right? So they have to just build. So they're increasing the tech debt. And you have a team behind them that's coming in and cleaning up after them, upgrading packages and stuff like that. And this might seem really obvious, but this is not a standard way that companies in the software world work for many reasons. One of those reasons is that a lot of startups, for instance, have a very small runway. It's like, we have $500,000. What does that get? It gets you like 3 developers in an AWS for a year. And if you don't get investment after the second year, what do you do, right? So like, a lot of companies will just be like, screw it. Tech debt, just keep going. Just like, forget the second layer. We just can't afford it, right? But I promise you, and if you're a dev, tell your project managers, tell your managers. This is really important because no software lasts for a single year. When you run out of money, okay, with an exception. Has anyone sold a startup? Yeah. Right? So okay, if your goal is to like, I'm gonna make an amazing product, and it's the technology by the time I sell it is gonna be awful, but it's like I sold it for $1 million. That is an amazing strategy. That's like putting all of your money on like green at a roulette table. like, uh, I don't like it's just it takes away the engineering from software engineering, right? We want to build stuff that's gonna last. And you got to structure your teams in a way where they're separated. You take the people that are really good at doing stuff and the people that are really good at upgrading packages. One thing that is not seen on this graph, and one thing that I have so many long conversations with managers, if you want to upgrade some packages, if you want to build a new CI, like, how do you know what to like? Where do you guys read your news? What are some cool outlets for like figuring out new technology? Hacker News, Reddit. Right, there's a bunch, right? So part of your job is literally just reading, right? Do they pay you to read? Can you make a Jira ticket? I'm gonna read Reddit for a while. Yeah, but they should, because I'm one of the co-organizers of the Toronto JavaScript community group, and man, there are people that work at Facebook and Google there. I talk to people there all the time. I'm on there all the time, all day, every day. I help on Stack Overflow. It's just like all of these things that are not part of your job. There's no ticket for it. They're going to make a huge difference in your career. In my career, they made a massive difference. If we go all the way back to me talking about React, right? I read an article about React in 2013. I'm like, this thing seems cool, right? And like now, it's crazy to think now. Imagine if it wasn't React. It's so ubiquitous. It took over the world. AI is taking over the world, right? So imagine like you found some AI thing 5 years ago, and you're like, your boss is like, that's dumb, don't do that, right? So. This is the tech debt part that we need to make. It's part of the job, right? You have to create tech debt as you build, as you fix, as you move forward, but you got to get the credit, right, somewhere, or else the debt goes away. And if you're really, really cool and you're running a really good shop, right, you did the credit part first. And then, so you never reach like a breaking point, right? You're always under some, you always have headroom. Thank you. How much time do you have? Oh, go ahead.
I wanted to ask, how do you find people who want to be on the B team?
On the what, sorry?
How do you find people that want to be on the B team? Or just so you've got
Oh, like to find those tech janitors? That's a really interesting question.
Nobody wants to be on the B team,
I
right?
I totally disagree. Not my experience. Yeah, that's not my experience. Like I think in my experience, most people that I work with just do everything. But when you're working at a company, like, look, what's a good way of saying this? A lot of the time I spent is okay. Let's use the React example, right? When I changed, I perfectly fine working Angular 1x app into React, right? Part of my thinking wasn't like, oh, I think React is gonna get us more money, and I wasn't even working for a for-profit business at the time. A lot of my thinking is developers on my team are going to enjoy the experience more. They're going to be more motivated to work on this project. A lot of people hate writing tests, right? Super annoying. You got to keep them up to date. It's like double the code that you have to keep up to date. But one day someone messes something up and CI catches it with tests, right? So the experience as a developer is so it's so I really really think it's super ultra important. Like just you want to come into work and you want to know that what you're doing is good. It's like okay, fine, a construction worker. You want to go and build construction. You're making an assumption that the people that hired you have safety things and regulations and no asbestos and stuff, right? There's like levels of uh, quality that are not super apparent. There's also very apparent ones. I mean, the React one may be a weird example because people like it now, but like the people that are like, hey, our new thing is React, and then suddenly they had to learn that, they were like, I hate you. But in general, there's just like, if you take a high level, like step back and think like, what is the developer experience like? Is it better? Is it like, actually, a lot of the talks I've done in the past have been about auto-generating APIs, zero code solutions. Developers really like those. You know, when you get a ticket and you're like, oh, it goes directly to close because it's zero code, right? Those are really cool things to do. And so the reason I'm saying all that is most of the developers I've worked with are really eager to jump into that lower tier to make things better for everybody, to make things better for themselves. That's just my experience, though. I don't know. That's
Being part of the B team is very difficult for the first time, but when it saves you headache in the future and when you realize that, it becomes a motivation for the future work. Like, I wasn't using backup on my laptop for years, and one time I said, I'm going to just put that backup. I don't care if it costs me $5-10 on cloud storage, just gonna backup. And then when I was trying to install operating system on the second SSD, I accidentally wiped my first SSD. And then was just getting back on track was because every hour it was being backed up.
okay.
That, like, you know what? I'm going to learn how to automate these backups and stuff and
Right.
become a person who does that for company.
That I think that really illustrates the experience I've had with every single developer. It's just like you start a new job, you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the code base, but they're like, you got to start somewhere, so make this button green. And then you go to that button, you make it green, and then later you're like, oh, I can just make all buttons green. Like it's like you learn like better, more efficient ways of doing everything, and as you get better at that stuff, you become more qualified to be under these lower teams that really like prop up the other teams.
Hi, Alex. Fun talk. You were in this hypothetical scenario where you're hired in and you're building something greenfield.
Uh-huh.
How do you establish tech credit?
Oh, that's great. I love this. I cannot give you a blanket statement to this, but I have so much to say about things that I know particularly well. If I had more time, what time is it? How much time do we have? Okay, that's not enough time. All right, so do you use Postgres?
Yeah.
Do you have some Postgres players in here? So okay, I talked about like some of the successes I've had, mostly been like JavaScript was a good pick, React was a good pick, Angular was like Meteor was a good pick, GraphQL was a good pick. So I kind of like rode a good wave going on. But one of the things that really elevated my personal career was these no-code solutions, which is taking a data model, and I gave a talk about this here before. So it's like you take a data model, and rather than who here has written a REST API before? Right? That's a lot of code, right? So how about writing no code and you take a data model and then you have a generator that generates the API, maybe generates tables and UI components and stuff. So a lot of stuff that you can. So to me, like that type of thing is massive tech credit, right? Where Oh gosh, it's killing me to like think about Jira CRUD tickets. You have one ticket. Create this. Write a create endpoint. Write an update endpoint. It's like, what if just no endpoints? No endpoints, no rest, no nothing, right? Like, I'm just gonna focus. I'm gonna spend all my time making like a beautiful data model. I'm gonna give you a really embarrassing example. So I work at a company called TopStep.com. It's a good company, and I inherited a lot of code, and they were missing a lot of foreign keys in their database, right? And you might think like, oh, that's not a big deal, right? Until you get 100,000 users and you look at the database queries and you get like table scans, or like huge table scans everywhere, like queries taking 10 seconds, 20 seconds. And that's like so fundamental. Why would you ever not have why use a relational database without having relationships? It's preposterous. And so, yeah, right, SAP. SAP. Access databases. Oh gosh, SOAP. Yo, let's write like a SOAP Access database Flash. It'll be a really cool app.
I think that's all the time.
Oh, okay, all right. Anyways, I'm around if anyone wants to talk.
Yes, one round of applause to Alex.
No, for Aaron.